Hello, everybody. Hello. I'd like to call our meeting to order. Thank you very much for coming. We'll start with the roll call, and I'll just call out the names of the advisory board members. And so I am present. And Raymond Russell Rust.
Present.
Susan Sparks.
Present.
Paul Stone.
Here.
Karen Vasquez. Carolyn Guerin.
Present.
Carol Willis.
Present.
Antonio Gracia. And then I believe we have a new person who's not here yet, who is Roberta Hudson, who is going to be our new public member. We had not yet had a public member, and she's not here yet, so hope she comes, and she's not here yet. Okay. So, we have the minutes here. Have you all had a chance to look over the summary of the advisory board minutes? If not, could you take a quick look and let me know if you have any emendations to those minutes, corrections, etc. Okay. Any additions or corrections or suggestions?
A motion to accept the minutes, Russell Rust.
I'll second that, Caroline Guerin.
Thank you very much. We have a second. The minutes are approved as viewed by us. So, thank you so much.
I think we can take a vote, actually.
We take a vote.
I think we probably formally should take a vote.
My parliamentarian here is really keeping me in line. Paul Stone, I appreciate it. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, very good. All right. So, Colleen, were you going to be doing the next piece here?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Colleen Tran, excellent lawyer working with TDLR.
So thank you, board members. Colleen Tran, Assistant General Counsel. Thank you guys so much for being here. We're going to do our Massage Therapy Advisory Board training today, and we'll go through the Open Meetings Act, the Administrative Procedures Act, and the Public Information Act. So we're going to start with the nuts and bolts of the Open Meetings Act. The purpose of the Open Meetings Act is to ensure open and transparent government. The Act requires meetings of governmental bodies, the Advisory Board, to be open to the public, and it has to be properly noticed about the time, place, and subject matter of the meeting. The provisions of the Act are mandatory, and they are to be liberally construed in favor of open government. So we're going to go through some key concepts of the Open Meetings Act. So the first one is a quorum. So the quorum is the majority of the members of the advisory board as fixed by rule or statute. Your statute requires that you have a 9-member board, so a majority in a quorum would be 5 members. A quorum of a governmental body, an advisory board, must be present in order to take any official action. But if you don't have a quorum, it doesn't mean we can't meet. You guys can meet, you guys can discuss, you just can't take any official actions. So the second key concept is deliberation, which means it's a verbal exchange between members of the advisory board or members of the advisory board and another person. And it has to be concerning issues within the jurisdiction of the advisory board or public business. The third concept is the meeting. So a meeting occurs anytime a quorum of the advisory board is deliberating issues regarding public business or public policy over which that advisory board has supervision or control, or any time that advisory board takes a formal action. Another key concept is the notice requirement. So the Open Meetings Act requires advance written notice of the date, time, place, and subject of each meeting. So we provide formal agendas. There are copies here. You guys have copies on your, in your materials. And that notice has to be filed, which is our agenda, has to be filed at least 7 days prior to the meeting with the Texas Secretary of State's office. And we also post it on our website, and they post it on their website. And so the advisory board cannot engage in any sort of discussion that is not properly noticed in that agenda. So what does this mean? So when it happens in social functions, conventions, and workshops, can members ever meet in an informal setting without violating the Open Meetings Act? Yes, you can. Members are free to engage in conversations that are incidental to those events that you guys are attending. However, in those gatherings, they will become subject to open meetings if a quorum of the members meet to discuss specific advisory board business or take any formal actions, which you shouldn't. Just put it out there. Some key points to remember. Always be aware of any situations occurring outside of properly noticed meetings. Don't engage in substantive conversations relating to board business or policy when there's a quorum present and you're outside of a formally noticed meeting like this. And then beware of the walking quorum. What's the walking quorum? So, a walking quorum occurs when you have a fewer than quorum number amount of people. That is really the wrong way to say that. When you have less than a quorum of members, I clicked too many times, discussing official business, and then those members communicate that discussion to other board members. So while there are fewer than the quorum number of members discussing it initially, they have walked that discussion to an actual quorum of members. So let's go with an example. So on a 5-member advisory board, 2 members exchange phone calls and emails about a proposed rule that they're working on. One of those members forwards that email to another board member. You now have a quorum, 3 members on that 5-member board, discussing board issues outside of a properly noticed meeting. So that's what has walked that quorum from that initial conversation. So for you guys, it's 5 members makes a quorum. Your advisory board work groups are 4 members. It just takes 1 member to forward that to an additional member that walks that quorum, and it's in violation of the Open Meetings Act. So just be careful. So how can it occur? Conference call, video conferences, hallway conversations, and new technologies. The new technologies like the Facebooks and the Twitters of the world make this really something that we always need to be cognizant of. And we need to be careful. How should we avoid it? Members should not meet in small groups, discuss board business, and then communicate those to other advisory board members. Should not send emails or text messages to a quorum of the members, even if it's individually addressed to each member, because you are now talking about the same thing with every single board member. Create posts on social media about where the likelihood of a quorum of members can participate in that discussion, or ask a quorum of the members, even on an individual basis, for feedback on an issue. That's kind of like polling or an informal vote. So, guidelines for open sessions. An advisory board is limited to discussing the specific items that are listed on the agenda. And during the public comment period, the public is invited to come and speak on any issue that they'd want, and the presiding officer is allowed to reasonably limit the commenter if he'd like. A member of the public or any member on the board can bring up and raise any issue that they would like to discuss. However, if it's not specifically listed on our agenda, we cannot discuss it at that time. We can always place it on a future meeting agenda, just because we want to ensure that everybody is properly noticed about what we're discussing. So here's some best practices to avoid violating the Open Meetings Act. For insufficient notice is limit your discussion to those that are specifically on the agenda. Avoid allowing agenda discussions to wander into new issues that are not noticed. Don't respond or discuss issues raised during public comment. You can always ask for clarifying issues, but at that time is that if it's not on the agenda, it may be new to everybody, and people they'll need to know that you're going to have that discussion. And then specifically identify those issues for future agenda items if you want to discuss them. So what are the remedies or penalties for violations of the Open Meetings Act? So any interested person can petition the court to stop an action that's taken outside of, in violation of the Open Meetings Act. And the Act specifically states that an action taken in violation of the Act is voidable. There are criminal penalties for violation of the Open Meetings Act. So if you knowingly conspire to circumvent the Open Meetings Act, it's a misdemeanor criminal penalty. It is punishable by a $100 to $500 fine or confinement for 1 to 6 months or both. So some best practices for the Open Meetings Act is to avoid a communication that involve a quorum of the board outside of a properly noticed meeting. And then during the open meeting, confine your discussions to what is specifically on the agenda. Here are some resources for you, but I'm always available. We're lucky to have our general counsel with us today, Brad, in the back. But we're always here if you need anything. Advisory board staff, Mary and her staff, so we're always here. The next is the Administrative Procedures Act. The purpose of the APA is to establish minimum standards for a uniform practice and procedure for state agencies and to provide the public with participation and transparency during the rulemaking process. A rule is a statement made by a state agency that implements, interprets, or prescribes law or policy, or describes a procedure or practice requirement of a state agency. It's a statement of general applicability, and it can amend or repeal a prior rule, and it does not solely relate to the internal management or organization of a state agency. Sources for the rulemaking process are Mr. Stone, you need something?
No.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Our legislative changes, advisory board work groups, advisory board discussions, the TDLR staff, the 4-year rule review, or the rule petition. So a rule petition is where any interested person can submit a petition to the state agency requesting the adoption of a rule. The interested person has to be a Texas resident, a business entity located in Texas, a governmental subdivision in Texas, or a public or private organization that is not a state agency but is located in Texas. So here's an illustration of our actual rulemaking process. We have an idea for a rule. We work on drafting and reviewing that rule draft. This blue box here is where we are today. That draft rule will be presented to the advisory board for consideration. Hopefully we'll go through that rule today. And it will be recommended to be proposed in the Texas Register, where it will sit for 30 days for public comment. Once that public comment period closes, I will review the comments and summarize them for you. The comments in the summarization in the rule will come back to the advisory board. We'll go through them, and we'll make any recommendation to the commission for adoption. The commission will receive the full rule packet, the filing, the comments, your recommendation, and hopefully they'll move for adoption. It will be filed in the Texas Register, and then hopefully effective 20 days after it is filed. Another process for rulemaking is the 4-year rule review. So every state agency is required to review their rules for their programs every 4 years. So each of the TDLR programs is on a 4-year cycle. When that's to basically whether or not we want to readopt, repeal, or amend our rules. So a notice of intent is published. It goes out and sits for 30 days in the public comment period. I'll review the comments that come back, and I'll make a recommendation on whether or not we should readopt, repeal, or amend rules for the particular program. Goes to the commission. Hopefully they readopt the rules, and any comments are sent to the advisory board for consideration. Here's some resources for you for the rulemaking process. And again, if you have any questions or concerns, you're more than welcome to reach out to me or Mary or the advisory board staff. And finally, the Public Information Act. So the Public Information Act is the Open Records Act. It's intended to allow each person access to information about the affairs of government and the official acts of public officials and employees. The acts make all documents, records, and other information relating to official business open to the public, and there are a few exceptions. Public information includes any electronic communication that's created, transmitted, received, or maintained on any device if it's in connection with official business. The act should be construed liberally and in favor of granting requests for information. So if you receive what you think is a public information request, or if I reach out to you or one of our open records attorney reads out to you for information, please try and be responsive and get us that information as soon as possible. A prompt response is required. It's approximately 10 days. We can't ask them for why they want the information, but we can ask them to clarify. And there are a few exceptions, which includes like date of birth and health information, protected health information. And here are some additional resources on public information if you need it. And with that, I'm done.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I understand that's something that's generally annually done to review this process. So this was our annual review, and thank you very much. Okay. All right. So on the agenda next is to have public comment. Now we have a fair number of commenters, which is great. And however, as a result of it, we'll do what we normally do, but for sure, which is that each person wanting to comment will be given 3 minutes. And could I ask, we have a person who's just completely reliable in terms of the timing, so thank you very much. And let us see here. I'll just read them in the order in which I received these. So I would like to ask up Diana Foley. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to read most of my notes to make the 3-minute limit. My name is Diana Foley, and I'm the president of the Texas Reflexology Association, and I'm a nationally board-certified reflexologist in practice for 15 years here in Austin, Texas. I did give each of you a packet of information with a bound position paper that we've already presented to TDLR executives, and there are brochures in the back. Our speakers that are following me will be referring to some of those things in there for your convenience. I and my colleagues are here today to address the board in response to a recent discussion about the definition of massage therapy and the possible inclusion of reflexology. We'd like to educate today on how reflexology differs from massage. Reflexology actually uses thumb and finger techniques applied to very specific reflex areas on the feet and the hands in order to stimulate complex neural pathways which link the body systems and support the body's efforts to normalize. Its effectiveness is recognized worldwide by national health institutes as a distinct modality within the holistic health field. Many of you don't know yet, but we do have a petition with 907 signatures on that went to TDLR executives stating the difference between massage and reflexology. 25% of the population in Denmark has reflexology on a regular basis as a part of their health protocols, maintenance if you will, and many European hospitals employ certified reflexologists on staff. I myself have been called into ICU units to work on people, and I have some case studies that I'd be willing to provide. Lumping reflexology with massage, in our opinion, is like requiring a plastic surgeon and an esthetician to license under the same law because they both work cosmetically on the face. To us, that just doesn't make sense. In 2000, the sunset hearings ruled an exemption of reflexology from the rules and regs of massage, yet we fight this battle every legislative session. In 2003, AMTA issued a model state code proposal calling for the exemption of reflexology and clearly demonstrating that those at the national level within the massage field do recognize the difference between the modalities. We all know that there are counterfeit massage and reflexology establishments on every corner in Austin, Texas. They're acting outside the law and the state regulations as they're already written. They are not practicing reflexology as defined, nor are they licensed massage therapists in most cases. These establishments, I believe, are an insult to every one of us in this room, to the board, to all licensed massage therapists, and to certified reflexologists who have invested their hard-earned money and time. These establishments...
It is about 3 minutes now. If you can wrap it up pretty quick. Thank you.
What our organization, TRA, would like to do is assist you in educating consumers on the difference and, when necessary, providing complimentary sessions to inspectors and enforcement law officials so that they know what they're looking for when they go into these establishments. We thank you for your time.
Thank you, too. Thank you very much. Okay. Ginny Hahn, please.
Thank you. I'm Ginny Hahn. I'm a certified reflexologist. I've been practicing for 14 years. I'm one of the founders and past president of Texas Reflexology Association. I want to highlight, and you have this information in your booklets on pages 3 through 8, that there are 3 organizations, professional organizations in the U.S. regarding reflexology. RAW, Reflexology Association for members, ARCB, the American Reflexology Certification Board for providing the certification, and the NCRE, which oversees the educational institutions that are offering reflexology education. RAW requires 300 hours of training in reflexology in order to be a member. However, if you are an ARCB certified reflexologist, that has the same amount of hours. To take the ARCB exam, which is the other organization, we require 110 hours of specific study. We require a 300-question national exam. Same exam is given to every reflexologist who applies. We also have hands-on practical assessment as part of the exam. I think that's a feature that the massage law dropped a few years ago, but we actually have hands-on review of our work. And lastly, we have to submit 90 client sessions, 30 clients, 3 sessions each, documenting the procedures, the modalities that we're following, the effects we're having on our work. So it's a very rigorous evaluation of reflexologists. Again, from our perspective, reflexology is a unique, different specialty. And if you look in the back of your book, you're going to notice the education that is provided by reflexology schools in Texas. And I think the one with the most hours has 15. So reflexology is not being taught in the massage schools. And if they were to add it, the certification requirements are 200 hours to sit for the ARCB board exam, 300 hours to be a member of RAW. The last thing I'd like to highlight is the studies on reflexology and its effectiveness have been documented appropriately. Again, a unique particular modality that has benefits separate from massage. Let's see, that's it. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right. I'd like to ask up Richard Ritz.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us. I, for one, am not a part of the Texas Reflexology Association, but through reflexology am associated because they're my friends. I've worked with Diana for a number of years. We met at a reflexology conference. I don't even know how long. It might have been like 10 years ago. Anyway, I'm here to present because I have been a licensed massage therapist, but chose to go and focus into the modality of reflexology, and completely have a complete understanding that they are 2 totally different modalities. And what I'd like to do is describe to you, why, partially because when I moved to Austin, Texas, I was trying to find a reflexologist. And there are very few of us. And and the ones that I have traded with, Diana included, and there's other certified reflexologists that aren't here. There's still very few of us, but it was a decision of mine to get certified and to get educated in reflexology beyond going to massage school. David, I did go to your massage school, so thank you for the education. I appreciate that.
My pleasure.
But beyond that, understood that there is a complete different education. And with that, when I take a client in, we sit and we talk, and there is an intake, and I ask about health, I call them imbalances, but just health history, and get an understanding about how the nervous system works with this person, and then I have a better understanding about how to apply the pressure onto the feet. I also work on the hands. The most a client has to remove as far as clothing is their shoes and socks. And I do an incredible, just as far as difference, the techniques are very different from massage therapy. It's pressure points. It takes an intense amount of finger dexterity. I call it digital strength. It's all in the fingers and the forearms. There's no stroking. There's no oils applied. It's really just pressure. We call it the walking thumb. We call it the press release. And it's really to stimulate nerves and to apply pressure to the reflex system. And a lot of times my clients fall asleep because of this, even though there is some intense pressure applied to the feet, and it can be, sometimes it smarts. So, they always tell me if it's too much, but most of the time they pass out. And it's fascinating. I understand, David, thank you. Sure. And I'm just trying to accentuate that it's widely different from massage therapy, and we just want you all to really understand that and recognize that. So thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Richard.
All right. And we have Kelly Gary, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you
Hi.
for letting me be here. My name is Kelly Gary, and I'm a certified reflexologist from Lubbock, Texas. I'm in my 23 year of practice. I currently have 336 hours of training under my belt, and I would like to thank you for the opportunity to come before this board today as we are talking about the differences of our modalities. And much effort has gone in today's presentation. These packets that these women have provided are incredible. I hope you take the time to read this. And as a group of reflexologists, we have submitted this report, and it is clear evidence that we are a group of professionals that are extremely dedicated to our careers, and we're extremely capable of standing on our own and governing ourselves. We do have national boards in place, and as the information is provided for you, massage therapy schools in the United States do not provide adequate education nor any CEU programs for those of us wanting to be a well-educated reflexologist. It would benefit my profession for this licensing board to register reflexologists on our own and to make sure we do have credible certification hours. I don't want somebody to watch a YouTube and decide they're a reflexologist. I would like for somebody to go to school like we have all done. And there is absolutely no evidence shown why going to massage school would benefit a reflexologist to learn reflexology. I would like to encourage this board to put into place that a massage therapist that advertises reflexology in any type would also be required to do the 200-hour training, as we have all done. I'm certainly not opposed to following the law. I just want it to be in the right direction and protect practitioners in their respective fields, not to be required to go to massage school when I have no intention of practicing massage. In 1995, I reached out to a reflexologist in Albuquerque, New Mexico, because I had a severely ADD son, and she worked with us for a year. So reflexology, cleaning his diet up, putting him in sports, and parenting him very closely, he went from D's and F's to an honor roll student, and there's no way that massage could have provided any of these results. It was strictly through reflexology because it worked on his endocrine system and his central nervous system. So after seeing these results, I was very excited about reflexology, and I became a reflexologist. I'm very fortunate to have a very large practice in Lubbock, and I have very little turnover in clients because they come to me to work on their hands and feet only. Reflexology is growing in our medical communities, and in Europe they do have reflexologists in the burn units for pain management. Dr. Oz even has reflexologists in his hospital. Yay, that's pretty cool. Reflexology is a serious advance in health fields and should not be confused with massage. This is quoted from the International Institute of Reflexology, the oldest running school in the world. The first book was written by Eunice Ingham in 1938 about reflexology. I want to thank you all today for listening and understanding and supporting us very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you all for your passion and clarity and articulateness. Thank you. Okay. I'd like to call up next Pamela Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and esteemed colleagues. Following on our wonderful reflexology crowd here, I was instrumental in during the sunset regulations, or the sunset hearings 2000-2001, in getting shiatsu reflexology, the Traeger approach, and Rolfing excluded from massage therapy laws. And in your colorful folders there, you will see the confirmation of that. So I feel I'm on sort of Route 66 here, this well-traveled road that we're returning to again and again with the same issues. I'm the Texas representative of the American Organization for Bodywork Therapies of Asia, known collectively as the AOBTA. And it's a professional membership organization representing over 15 different forms of Asian bodywork therapy, all rooted in Chinese medicine. Our training is totally different from massage therapy, and I should add, I'm trained in both. I'm an LMT and a board certified and a nationally certified instructor of Asian bodywork therapy, so I can talk from conviction and from experience about the differences in education. Our basic minimum education is 500 hours, of which 100 hours is solely on the theory of Chinese medicine. And our specific emphasis on one particular form of Asian bodywork therapy, I should say in the state of Texas, the most popular forms are shiatsu, which is my specialization, but also tui na, which is often one of the main forms of bodywork taught at schools of acupuncture, and of course medical qigong likewise. So those are the 3 out of the 15 that are practiced mainly in the state of Texas, and I should say practiced mainly by acupuncturists as well, who've gone the full training, as well as being AOBTA certified with that basic 500 hours of training. Our crossover with massage therapy probably is that required 100 hours of A&P, and of course the required training in the ethics of practice and also business. But apart from that, our training is totally different. Our student clinics are run differently, and our scope of practice is completely different. I do honor, especially like David's school, those schools of massage therapy that include CEU courses in shiatsu, Thai, and also sometimes Jin Shin Do. But those are courses of, 40 to 80 hours maybe, CEU courses or introductory courses. Wonderful way of integrating some of the techniques into a massage repertoire, but in no way qualifying a practitioner to call themselves an Asian bodywork therapist without that comprehensive 500 hours. Is that my time up? Yes, oh dear. Can I have an extra quick? Quick. I do honor and totally support your efforts against human trafficking. I personally had time with the vice squad of the APD and gave them a checklist so they could tell the difference between an authentic acupuncture and Asian bodywork practice and what we call the lotus lips specials. Yeah. And all that information is in the colorful folders. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right. All right. And now let me ask up Barbara Neiman, please.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for listening to us. I represent myself and the Traeger, the United States Traeger Association, and the International Traeger Association, which the USTA is a chapter of. I was the first chapter president of the Heartland region of the United States, and I'm a former board member of that. And in addition, I am also a licensed massage therapist of 36 years. However, soon after, within 2 years, I switched over to Traeger. So I would like to emphasize that the United States Traeger Association, educates and certifies, has a completely self-regulatory organization. And by the way, this letter that's helping me word this is from Jim Noriega, who is the Law and Legislation Chairman of the USDA, and he is in touch with all the states' processes of licensing, and ones that license and don't license and exempt and everything. And of the 50 states, Traeger is able to practice without restrictions in 36 of them. And everything is still in process in all the states. So, and I worked with Pam in the last legislation round, which didn't come forth. Okay, so we enforce professional and educational standards, codes of ethics. We have a training that includes hands-on supervision. I'm a senior practitioner and also a tutor for the whole international group. And so we monitor what's going on, right? You know, we and constantly have CEUs and all that, and details of that could be provided, as well as the professionally, the scientific studies and the published articles on Traeger associated with all kinds of medical fields. I have with me Jane Balancia, who works for a holistic dentist in Marble Falls, who has testimonials from her, all the dentists there that they can't do without her, and that you know, Traeger greatly enhances the results, the preoperative results, the relaxation, and the postoperative results and healing. So anyway, she's there to speak as well, though she didn't sign up. She didn't but anyhow, she brought all her information, if you want a specific example of a medical approach. Dr. Traeger, whose name is the organization's legacy, developed his, over his whole medical career of rehabilitation therapy, and he was discovered and asked to turn his work into an institute, which he basically taught. I just want to say one thing, that it's Traeger approach is not a modality or variant of massage therapy, and if a Traeger practitioner would enroll in a massage school, it would not count toward massage training, and if the massage people would take Traeger training, they would not get credit for massage. So it's totally different, and it's a movement education rather than a, you know, stroking and massage techniques. So I have all the other information and details, if you like.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. All right. Now I'd like to call up Maxine Yang. Hi.
Hi. Okay, I feel a little nervous, so I will talk really fast. I'm a licensed massage therapist for many years. I once was asked if I've ever given hand jobs from someone I just met. So being an Asian masseuse, I tend to get a lot of the stereotypes of, you know, Asian massage parlors, AKA, you know, the happy ending places. So I really agree with the group right here, the reflexology group, wanting to propose if you guys would ever consider to differentiate the different type of licensing. So a lot of the, you know, my coworkers, colleagues, people in my circle, we are willing to practice legally and do everything necessary, but the only way to do that is to become a licensed therapist. And when that happens, a lot of people feel like they invested so much into their career, they're willing to go above and beyond and cross over to that area where they make a lot more money. So it makes us look bad, and really it's not something they want to do in the first place, but because of licensing, when they are really just practicing reflexology and acupressure and twin out whatever they're saying, but they're required to be fully licensed as a masseuse. So once they do that, they feel like they have the rights or the power, whatever, to do whatever they want. So they start opening shops and they start doing, so it's like a vicious cycle. I also volunteered at the police department locally, and you know, the human trafficking and all that, it's now as what it is looking from the inside. And because I am a Chinese American masseuse and I'm fully connected with the circle, a lot of times, a lot of them, when they get in trouble, they will cry human trafficking just to get out of trouble. So that's why from the outside, it looks like, you know, all these innocent Asian women are being forced into sex trap. That's not true. They are forced to be licensed, not forced, okay, change my wording. They're required to be licensed. Once they invest that money and the time and the energy, they feel like they need to make their money worth. But if you give them some type of licensing that allows them to practice legally and be accountable for their actions, they won't go above and beyond become a masseuse, which actually elevate the competition. So all of the traditional Swedish masseuses will have their clientele, and the Asian practitioners will have their clientele, and the schools will have a new set of students, new set of business, because right now the schools are suffering since a lot of the Asians are not capable of passing the national exam. So they really don't even go to school anymore. They just practice illegally. So I feel like if there's any way we can come together and, you know, talk to people like me from the inside so we can come up with solutions that is going to be good for everybody.
Great. Thank you. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. I'd like to call up Debra Persinger, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Debra Persinger, Executive Director of the Federation of State Massage Therapy Boards. Thank you for the opportunity to address this board. Thank you for your service to the people of Texas and in the role of public protection. As you may know, the membership in the Federation is comprised of the 48 states that are regulated in the U.S. and territories, including the state of Texas. The FSMTB is designated by the federal government to reduce the burden on government, and one of the ways that we do that is by providing the national licensing exam so that the citizens, for example, in the state of Texas, don't have to bear that cost. One of the benefits and privileges of your membership, each of you are members of the Federation, is that you have the opportunity to govern and influence policies pertaining to FSMTB programs, including the national licensing exam. I've traveled today because through the advantages of technology, it's come to my attention that you've been presented with multiple pieces of misinformation, and so I wanted to share some. I'll be zigzagging a little bit, but to maybe correct some misinformation and allay some unnecessary concerns. The MBLEX, Massage and Bodywork Licensing Examination, MBLEX is the acronym, is an assessment of entry-level knowledge and skill for safe and competent practice. It's been pivotal nationally in breaking down barriers to practice and facilitating professional mobility. There is empirical evidence spanning over a decade that the practice of massage and bodywork is the same at entry level, which is what we assess for licensure purposes. So it's not an exam testing expertise or approach to treatment. We understand there's differences in, for example, Asian bodywork therapy versus what a massage therapist does. What we're looking at in licensure is protection of the public. So no matter the approach to practice, everybody has to wash their hands, everybody has to change their linens, everybody has to not fall in love with their client and think that's a good thing. Everybody knows the thigh bone's connected to the knee bone. So we're very much entry level, which is what the MBLEX assesses. We use a computer adaptive testing platform which pinpoints each candidate's ability. So every candidate, in essence, gets a different exam. All the content on the MBLEX is entry level. There are varying degrees of complexity a candidate will be presented with, for example, just straight memory recall versus a more complex clinical scenario with maybe 3 different things going on. But all the content is entry level. The MBLEX exceeds, not just meets, but exceeds standards in the testing industry and has been recognized nationally for best practices in both test development and design. The Federation goes to great lengths to protect and defend the integrity of the exam and consequently the licensure process. For example, you may or may not be aware, we currently have a lawsuit in the state of Texas from a group from California that came to Texas during the transition between health services. Can I finish my thought? Before it came to TDLR. One advantage of the MBLEX is everybody passes through us, and so we have a connection with the FBI nationally and other enforcement agencies because everybody in the nation comes through. I'm sorry.
Great. Thank
Do you
you.
want me
Thank
to
you for
finish?
traveling all this way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have more that I can share with you. It was a lot to correct for you. Perhaps I'll do that in writing.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Great. All right. Kevin Sneddon?
Thank you. Good afternoon. So I'm Kevin Sneddon, and I'm the Director of Professional Standards for FSMTB. I am a licensed massage therapist. I'm a former massage therapy educator and a former regulator. I served for 11 years on the Missouri State Board of Therapeutic Massage. So a very similar role, and as Debra said, thank you for the work that you do in the efforts of public protection. There are many services that we can provide to our membership, and some may be a little lesser known. So, for example, we have had the opportunity to work directly with TDLR inspectors and staff, as well as other state agencies here in Texas to combat fraud and to help investigate and look into suspected diploma mills. We also had the opportunity to present in conjunction with Mr. Brian Francis at the TASTE conference last year. The biggest thing I want to share with you today, though, is how we support you by supporting the schools and the students in the state of Texas. We have the same desires, and that's that those students are successful. A large part of what I do is to work directly with the approved massage therapy programs in the state, their students, and regulatory agencies, both the massage therapy regulatory agencies and the agencies that approve schools in various states. So from a school standpoint, even on our website, there is an Info for Schools webpage that has useful information and resources for educators, as well as instructional videos that can be shown in the classroom. For students, when they pass the exam or when they sit for the examination, within 24 hours, their scores are sent securely, electronically, directly to the regulatory board. We don't want to hamper or slow down the licensure process, so we do everything we can to get them there in under 24 hours. Campus site visits. We go out and offer presentations both to faculty and students. For faculty, history of the examination, exam development, Q&A with them. From a student standpoint, history of the organization, what to expect on test day, how to apply, and how to prepare. Correlating with that, our candidate handbook. We have an FSMTB candidate handbook that we provide at no charge to the massage therapy schools. You send us an address and let us know how many copies you would like, and we will send that out to you. FSMTB developed the MBLEX study guide. It does match the content outline of the examination. It provides practice questions and a practice exam in the back of it, but also various study points to help that student be successful and prepare to know that they're studying the right things that they may be tested on. We do something called candidate care calls. If an individual doesn't pass the exam, and that's happened 3 times, we want to help them. We want to know what's going on. So they're required to then contact a member of our candidate care team, and we discuss with them, what was your last testing experience like? How are you preparing for the exam? What resources are you using? And how can we strategize with them and make recommendations and suggestions to help get them over that hurdle and get them towards the path of licensure? Thanks so much for your time. The last comment I want to make is that we're dependent upon our volunteers, right? We're a nonprofit organization, and we have incredible volunteers that are both licensed massage therapists in practice here in the state of Texas, and those folks affiliated with schools. So we thank them for their role in support of public protection and the work that you do.
Chair, I have
Thank
one
you.
question. Okay.
Do we allow questions for
No.
the?
Is it clarifying on what he said, or is it something else? Who's calling?
Can ask clarification?
No. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin.
Yes, and just for public, or just for YouTube everywhere, Mary Winston, TDLR. Because it's public comment and the board knows, and you just have an interest in, we can talk afterwards, definitely. But when things aren't noticed and you come for public comment, we have a set-aside time as per the board to make that comment. But unless it's a clarifying question, the board cannot ask questions. It's simply for, and I'm sure you know this, sir, simply for the opportunity to give public comment, possibly to get something on a future agenda, but those are all the notice requirements that we have.
Right. Thanks for that clarification. Okay. Laura Embleton.
One question. There is a clarification. He stated in the one before that there was a government agency that oversighted them. I just want to know what government agency that was.
Now, that is a clarifying question.
There
Yes.
you go.
I didn't make a reference to us.
Well, both of y'all, I'm sorry, lady that was prior to you
Dr. Persinger.
said, what did you bring up about the government oversight that y'all handle and take care of? Whose government oversight?
This is Colleen Tran. Somebody needs to say their name and sit down at the desk. Somebody.
You're good.
Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
State your name again.
Dr. Debra Persinger, Executive Director of the Federation of State Massage Therapy Boards. So we have a status 501c3 from the Federal Internal Revenue Service to reduce the burden on government. That's our assignment for the 501c3 status.
But that
Does
has
that
nothing
answer?
to do with testing.
The IRS has no bearing on
Okay,
testing.
thank you very
correct.
much. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And David's, oh, I'm sorry, Laura.
Yeah.
Your turn, your turn.
Hi, I'm Laura Embleton. I'm the National Government Relations Director for Associated Bodywork and Massage Professionals. And I was at the last board meeting where you guys started talking about revising the rules and the statute and all of that. So I mean, you've heard from a lot of people from the Asian bodywork field today. I would caution you, I was a little nervous last time when you guys were talking about, let's go with the North Carolina scope of practice. Well, when you get into licensing bodywork professionals, everybody has different requirements. So it's not one size fits all. So I'm just cautioning you to be really careful when you get into that. Maybe reach out to the AOBTA and Lauren Papp. I know that they've been working on a bill in Massachusetts that didn't pass this year, but there's some language that they've put together that would help you guys do that if you're interested in doing that. But don't just say everybody that does body work has to do 500 hours at a massage school. It's just not going to work. On the public comment part of the meeting, I travel to a lot of different committees around the country, and there's a lot of times there will be availability for the public to comment after some substantive work has been done, because then it's easier to comment then instead of to come back 3 months later and make a comment on something that happened in the last month. So it would be great. A lot of boards around the state might have public comment after a substantive, before they vote on something perhaps, like they'll have a conversation and then there's the board talks and then there's voting and then the public can comment after the board talks before the vote is made. So I mean, it's really hard to comment on what's happening on the substantive stuff that comes after the public comment when there's no availability for public comment after that. So I just would encourage y'all to look at a different model of allowing the public to participate in the meeting. I also heard that there was a potential bill that would lower the hours and get rid of an exam, and I think that is a terrible idea, and I don't think you should go down that path. That's it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Laura.
I made it under 3.
All right, under 3. Just, if you don't mind, for clarification, Colleen, didn't you say there is a period of public comment before any decisions are made along those lines, right?
This is Colleen Tran. Assistant General Counsel. I was speaking about rules. The public can comment on the rules.
On the rules,
in
yeah.
that 30-day comment period.
Okay.
In the rule making.
Yeah, cool. Okay, great. Thank you all so much. And I'd like to call up David Sproles.
Can y'all hear me through this? Okay. I'm appearing before the Massage Therapy Board to testify for the following subject matter, or the rule in section 140.306.9C, which needs to replace the word or with and. Furthermore, it needs to specify that the license number should also be on the store front. I believe this will be helpful because of all the human trafficking and other non-professional people working without a license, and we need to have a rule that the license number must be on everyone's advertising and written documents of communication, such as business cards, flyers, websites, and even the front door of a physical location. This would be much in the same way as other skilled labor people, service providers, or healthcare professionals such as doctors, chiropractors, physical therapists, and even plumbers. I think that will greatly benefit. I remember in the last meeting, and I've been here for every meeting that y'all have had, so thank you for the opportunity to speak. But I think this will be very helpful in combating the human trafficking and also dealing with unlicensed professionals or unlicensed people that are not professionals in our field. It'll help stave that off because then we won't have to have evidence to keep them from practicing. We can simply shut them down for not having their license public, their license number. That's it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Colleen Tran, Assistant General Counsel. What's the rules site you're referencing?
It's in section 140, 306, 9C, and I have it here if you want me to read it out loud.
I just want to let you know that the Chapter 140 rules were the Department of State Health Services rules. The current massage therapy rules are in Chapter 117.
Oh, okay.
I just want to make sure that you're referencing and looking at the rules.
Oh, okay.
Just encourage you. They're on our website.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I want to thank all the commenters and encourage you to keep on with your level of activity. It's very appreciated. Thank you. And now we're going to move on to the period of staff reports. And so I'd like to call up representatives from the licensing division first.
Good afternoon, Chairman Waterstein and board members. I'm Chloe Whalen, Licensing Manager. Just wanted to update you on what's going to happen come January. So massage instructors will be, their online application, their initial one, will be updated so that they can answer the 30-hour course that they've taken through the year. So they'll be able to put that information in there. Come January when that is implemented. We're in testing right now. I did confirm that online duplicate license requests is being worked on right now. It's part of one of the projects that's being worked on. So that will be coming to you soon. Let's see, what else did I have? And I believe that's it. Unless you have any questions regarding the statistics report that you have before you.
Mm-hmm. Any questions? No? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You guys have a Merry Christmas and a
You
Happy New Year.
too. Happy holidays. All right. Customer Service Division.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Tuan Nguyen. I'm the Customer Service Manager for this program. So since the last time we met in October, it looks like our average stats for September and October is roughly the same. We have roughly about 3,000 contacts per month, and majority of the contacts is still about new application statuses and renewal statuses. And other than that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have for me.
Any questions? No? Short and sweet. Thank you very much. Okay. Examinations and Education Division, please.
Good afternoon, Chairman and board members. I will be presenting the Education and Examination Report, and my name is Lorraine Srofe, and I am with the Education and Examination Division. Since we just met in October, the information I have to share with you is very small, but we did provide the statistics for you. We have added a few statistics since the last report. We're including the number of massage schools and the number of massage CE providers. And you will also notice that we do show that comparison between all approved CE providers that we have in the agency. The JP exam statistics has also been provided, where you have fiscal year 2018 and 19 now for comparison. And we also provided you the numbers regarding our audits of providers. We have an auditor on staff that audits all continuing education providers, and massage will be auditing it has started being auditing now for the fiscal year 2019. The numbers that you are provided are for all CE providers, not just massage. So I do want to make sure that you don't think that that 30 classroom and 17 online is just massage. And then later in the agenda, Ray and I will be available for questions when you give the work group update. And that concludes my report, unless you have some questions.
Any questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to call up representative from the Enforcement Division.
Chairman and board members, Chris Funderburg with the Enforcement Division. I'll be presenting our report today. Excuse me. So you have in front of you today a summary of all, cases that have been opened and closed by TDLR since October of this year. From those numbers, we've pulled out full statistics relevant to the massage program in general, specifically. It's about 6% of all cases open, 9% of all cases resolved, 6% of agreed orders, and about 5% of the penalties assessed. The only thing I'd like to point out is the amount of penalties assessed, 24,500, is almost is just $5,000 short of the what was actually collected. This indicates a proclivity on the part of this licensee class to try to achieve compliance. But the number of cases that were opened and closed is important. But I think what's also important is why the cases were opened and how they were ultimately resolved. This information isn't included in these statistics, but I just wanted to go over it with you quickly. There are 56 cases open since we last resolved since we last met, and these cases were resolved in one of 6 manners: dismissal, default judgment, agreed order, revocation by operation of law, and revocation by denial by operation of law and through litigation. Of these, the bulk of the cases, the manners, these cases were mostly resolved through negotiated settlement. And this is not an accident. This reflects a priority of the Enforcement Division to bring a respondent, would rather bring a respondent into compliance or bring an unlicensed person into licensure or a licensee into compliance with the rules and regulations than extinguish a license or seek a massive penalty, except sometimes the law requires us to revoke or deny licensure. I think that you'll see this emphasis on negotiated settlement is reflected in the case summaries that I presented for you today. Again, I try to say this at every enforcement advisory board meeting. Enforcement's role is not punitive. We seek compliance is our goal rather than punishment. But turning to the case summaries, I won't read them out to you, but I've chosen these because they're representative of the manner in which you resolve most cases, and also some of them have a twist to them that I think help illustrate enforcement's activities within your within your licensure class. The first of the first Foodie Rudy, which I'm very tired of saying, is it was a simple unlicensed case. We proceeded against their Corpus Christi location, and they settled and acquired licensure ultimately after paying a penalty of close to $2,000. The second of the two cases I selected because it's representative of a certain kind of case where we think there's something going on that's illicit. However, we don't have proof of any illicit activity, but nonetheless, these establishments have licenses and they seem to be operating in name only, and that is, they haven't fulfilled any of the requirements of a properly functioning massage establishment. And in this particular instance, we didn't find anything going on that would, necessitate revocation, but we did notice that they didn't maintain any documentation, and so we sought a penalty, which they ultimately paid. The third case is slightly different. Sexual assault was alleged. We decided not to proceed on that allegation. However, the civil suit is also being pursued against the respondent, and I believe there's going to be some interplay between our action, which ultimately was resolved through a default, and civil litigation. The fourth case, this is the classic conviction or prosecution leads to revocation of licensure. The only thing item of note is that the actual conviction occurred in Worcester, Massachusetts, where they call it sexual conduct for fee, but it just shows that no matter where it happens, it'll follow you. And the last, I hesitate a little bit, but because of the nature of the act alleged. So it was a simple assault. However, simple assault doesn't necessitate revocation, but this particular act was determined by the department to be a sexual offense. I don't want to get too graphic, but essentially, the respondent made an offer for a service contract to her client during her licensing session, and made her intentions very, very clear. And this, in and of itself, didn't rise to the level of a sexual assault. What occurred, but it did constitute battery, an unlawful touching, and because that battery was predicated on a sexual intent, we determined that the sexual assault was actually a sexual offense, and on that basis, revoked the respondent's massage therapy establishment license. That concludes my report. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions? No, thank you for persevering. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. The Field Inspections Unit.
Good afternoon, Chairman, board members. My name is Juan Munoz. I'm a field liaison with the Field Inspections Division, and I'll be doing a report for the field inspections today. Before you should have the 10 most common violations during our inspections. I won't read them all to you, but if you all have any questions or you want any clarity on what we've seen.
Do you have any questions on these here? We're just looking at them for the first time.
Okay.
Questions?
No.
That's
Right, and these are
very
for
clear.
this is for the last quarter. This is what we
I got you.
10 most common in the last
Thank
quarter. Field staff continue to work closely with Jennifer Harless, TDLR's Strategic Response Coordinator, on identifying, reporting, and documenting human trafficking during massage establishment inspections. Liaisons Ulysses Osio, Sean O'Neill, and myself are drafting procedures for inspectors who encounter signs of human trafficking during our inspections. Ronald Gerke, our North Region Field Inspector, attended a human trafficking awareness meeting in Fort Worth, sponsored by All Saints Catholic Church and the Northeast Neighborhood Association in October. And we also have some personnel updates. We had a position posted for a DFW area. That position currently has been filled, and that individual should be employed come the first of the year. We also had a resignation in our East region, and that position has posted and would surely get filled here just over the next, in the next year, or next month, I should say. Okay, that concludes my report, unless you have any questions of me.
Y'all see the statistics there?
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize.
That's okay.
And there were an additional 87 of the massage establishments that were conducted in November, and I don't think that it was included in your list, and an additional 5 massage schools that were also performed in November.
Great. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Regulatory Program Management Division, RPMD.
Good afternoon. Hi, my name is Marinelle LaFleur, and I'll be giving the RPM Regulatory Program Management staff report today. Elizabeth Bettis and myself have participated in a standard care of work group meeting that was held on November 16, 2018, to review and discuss development recommendations on proposed rules. We also conducted research in creating a state-by-state therapy substantial equivalency requirement guide. We participated in the task force team meeting, which we're trying to have at least every 3 months. We continue to help enforcement, field operations, licensing, and customer service with questions that arise during investigations, as well as to address any daily industry questions and emails. That concludes my report. If you have any questions, I'll be more than glad to answer.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. Could we hear from the executive office, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Nick Voinis, TDLR Chief of Staff. Want to welcome all of you here today. Thank you for being here. We appreciate your service. Kind of here to give you a summary of what's been happening around the agency since you last met in October. Our staff's been working to prepare for the upcoming session of the Texas Legislature, which starts January the 8th. This summer, we completed our strategic plan and our legislative appropriations request. We talked about those reports at your last meeting, and as a reminder, I want to remind you that both reports are available for viewing on tdlr.texas.gov. TDLR has also participated in several interim legislative hearings. Again, all this is in preparation for the start of the next legislative session here very, very soon. Our public outreach would like to talk to you a little bit about that, including your website, and update you on some traffic numbers associated with the program. Over the last 6 months, the massage therapy website had 165,419 page views. That's an average of 904 a day. 53% of those visitors accessed your site from a desktop computer, while 47% did so from a mobile device. And the top reasons for visiting the site were to apply or renew online, how to renew an existing massage license, license search, administrative rules, and how to apply for a new massage license. As you remember, your website was streamlined and refreshed last year. It was one of the very first that we did. The new site was launched in January, and keeping in mind that we had a relatively small sample size before that of only 63 days, we have seen some drastic improvements, including the average daily number of page views has increased by 30%. The average time spent on a page decreased by more than 27%, and the bounce rate has dropped almost 15%. What this means is that our customers are able to find the information they're looking for 28% faster after the massage therapy website was updated under our current web content initiative that we are working with all of our program pages there. I want to thank our own web team and Josh Schroeder and the medical and health professions team for the great job that they did on those sites. Wanted to mention, in addition to our web presence, remind you all that we are active on social media. We have accounts on Facebook and Twitter, and to please check those out to keep up with TDLR news and events. We also have a group of about 10,750 subscribers who receive various email blasts pertaining to your program, and that number has grown quite a bit since in the last couple of months. We're real happy about that. If someone is not receiving those notices and would like to, all they have to do is go to tdlr.texas.gov and subscribe, and they will immediately start receiving those. And if that's it, I'd be glad to answer any questions. Otherwise, that's the end of my report.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. Now, let's see here. We've been going a little while. Why don't we take just a 10-minute bathroom break and get a little water, and thank you for your attention. Really appreciate it.
Testing, testing.
All right. Thank you all so much. I hope your break was enjoyable and you've come back refreshed and ready to hear more scintillating reports. So, I'd like to ask Ms. Tran to give us also now a further report. Thank you.
Colleen Tran, Assistant General Counsel. I'm going to be going over Agenda Item G, which is the overview, discussion, and possible recommendation on the proposed amendments to Chapter 117, Sections .90, .91, and .93. So I just want to note these rules are still out for review, but I wanted to bring them before you today, and the hope is that that we'll have a recommendation for publication of the rules as they are. If the review process comes back and there are substantive changes, we won't publish them without you guys seeing them again. So just want to make that clarification.
Can I ask, us seeing them means you would inform
See
us
me
all,
again?
or
No.
we would have a meeting again?
You guys would, well, we will do this exactly. I would bring them before you in your materials, we'll have a conversation about them, and then you would recommend it that they be published again.
Okay.
If they change substantively.
So they're being reviewed by who?
Fiscal review, whether or not they.
Oh, okay. I thought this was the
No.
final product here.
It is the final product, but it's just we're needing to make sure that there's no
Okay.
fiscal impact. And so if things need to be changed, then we would do that, but we wouldn't publish them without bringing them back. Okay. So the first change is to .90, which is their general ethical requirements. Again, these are the these rules come from the draping discussion that we had at our October meeting. So the proposed change would be to add subsection U to the general ethical requirements, stating that a licensee shall provide draping and treatment services sufficient to protect a client's safety, comfort, and privacy, and must drape the genital area and gluteal cleavage of a client at all times, and the breast of a female client at all times, unless performing breast massage as specifically authorized through the signed consultation document referenced in section 117.91.
Okay, one point of clarification on that. When you say cleavage, I consider that area as a glute. If we expose a glute on one half and a glute on the other half, is that?
I'm going to have to call on my work group members. This was language proposed by our scope of practice work group, so I was going with their expertise. So
Okay, well, I'm saying cleavage is when you lower it down and you're seeing the center.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there's a half and there's a half.
Well, a half and a half is a whole, as you may
Not
recall.
if you don't see it all at once.
No, let's just say we're not including the center, just
Thank
for
you. Okay.
clarification.
Just making sure.
Sure, that's fine.
Okay.
That
We're
was
good?
entertaining right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're Mr. Russ? Just want to make sure that the language is good with you?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Because of that change that requires draping, we also need to make change to the consultation document, specifically section 117.91, subsection 3, which adds that a statement that the licensee shall drape the breasts of a female client and not engage in breast massage of a female client without the written consent of the client.
Can I make a point here?
Sure.
Ms. Tron, is this a good time?
Sure.
On section 3 there, it may, Paul Stone, first of all, I'm sorry. On item 3 that you just referenced there, and maybe it's implied in most people's minds when you say without the written consent of the client.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just in an abundance of caution, would it not be a little more careful to say without the prior written consent of the client, meaning prior to the session? You know, hypothetically, you could have a client on the table who, you know, they're in a vulnerable position even though they're fully draped and hopefully a blanket and conservatively draped and all that, but the therapist could suggest, you know, based on your complaint, I think some breast massage might be appropriate or might help alleviate your symptoms or whatever.
I don't have any objection to writing prior written consent of the client. Does anybody else on the board?
I would think prior is not very explicit. It might be saying without the written consent of the client immediately prior to the session. Prior could be 2 weeks before,
Prior
and we're
to
not
the
requiring
session?
that. Yeah.
So you're saying each, prior to
Immediately.
each
I would think so,
session?
just to be
Mhm.
careful.
So I would, just so I can read it to you. So a statement that the licensee shall drape the breasts of all female clients and not engage in breast massage of a female client without the written consent of the client prior to the service.
Immediately prior
So just so I'm clear, David, so when you say immediately prior to the session, you're saying immediately prior to each session, or
consultation?
I don't
That
know.
would be prior.
If there's
So what, for
there's better
how
language, I'm open
I
to
would
it.
read this, and we can ask enforcement how they feel. I would read it as, if you are going to do written consent, it would have to be immediately prior to the day you're doing that service. So what if you're going to do yourself filling out, and you would like to have breast massage done, you must consent prior to the service of breast massage.
So one-time consent would not be considered forever consent, but you would consent each time.
Right, but your consultation document is required prior to each service.
Anyhow.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on that? That's important.
The next change would be to subsection 4, a statement that draping of the genital area and the gluteal cleavage will be used at all times during the session for all clients.
One question, would that not be a cleft instead of a cleavage, technically? A cleft?
I don't.
I've heard of
My-
cleft palates, but I haven't heard of cleft buttocks.
Gluteal cleft.
It's cleavage.
Would it be generally understandable to a therapist if they saw gluteal cleavage?
Yes.
Would they understand that it could also include cleft? Yes? No?
I know I've always heard the term cleft. I'm not.
It's just a point of
Is the work group
clarification.
Now, Mary Winston TDLR, is the work group now saying cleft?
I'm not in that work group.
Okay.
No, well, as a board, we
As a
can
board,
discuss it.
as a board.
So, and/or, just so that we can cover our world, gluteal cleavage / cleft,
Then you
or
got
is
both.
cleft more acceptable?
Anatomically, if you,
Gluteal cleft.
Okay, so we'll change that in both .90 and on the consultation document then? Or would we
There's
like
no
to include
objection.
both terms?
you just go with cleft.
That's fine with me.
Okay.
There you go.
So let me just review this one more time before we go forward. It will read the genital area and gluteal cleft of all clients at all times. Just want to make sure I'm using the right term.
Yes.
Okay. And then for subsection 117.91.3, it will end without the written consent of the client immediately prior to the service.
Thank you.
So additionally, we need to propose an additional amendment to the rules and to remove the blanket prohibition on the use of testimonials and advertisement. I believe this was also brought up in a public comment last time. Upon reviewing it, the change is being proposed is also because of 2 opinions issued by the Office of the Attorney General. These opinions advise that a court would most likely conclude that a blanket prohibition on testimonials may be unconstitutional. I do also believe that the issue, again, was raised last at our during a public comment. So the change would just be to the advertising section, removing subsection 4, which says contains a testimonial.
Any questions or comments?
Paul Stone, I had one comment, and I'm sorry to backtrack.
No, it's fine.
On the consultation document, and excuse my ignorance if it's in the language in some section not referenced here on what we have in our materials. But is there anything, since a person has to be 17 years of age to receive massage without parental or guardian consent, is there anything requiring date of birth on the consultation document in the heading? I know that's sensitive information, especially in today's climate, but I don't know how we establish, and maybe it's there, I don't know how we establish the age of a person receiving services to be able to prove up that they're indeed 17 based on what they provide us if that information is not required on that document.
My suggestion would be maybe something that your scope of practice work groups need to look further into is about what exactly is required for proving that up and what you could do as a work group to fix that or address that.
Okay. Hopefully everybody on the scope of practice heard that concern, and maybe we'll look at it.
So let's make sure that gets brought to the work group.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's a little bit. It's outside of what we've noticed as draping is what we're addressing.
Draping,
so
right.
I just.
I thought I was maybe a little bit off topic there. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Okay. So if there aren't any additional questions or concerns, it would be in order for you to recommend that they be published with the changes that we discussed today for public comment.
Yeah. So are there any objections to that being published for public comment at this soon then?
With the changes to of the term cleavage to cleft, and then the addition of the term of the phrasing that it needs to be immediately prior to a service.
No.
Agreement.
We're good.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Oh,
we have to vote?
Yeah.
All right. All in favor, please say.
I'll make a motion to approve the rule changes as presented.
Russell Rose, second it.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you very much. Okay. So next on the agenda is Education and Examination Work Group update. And did you say I should say something? I just want to say that the Education and Examination Work Group met in November, also met today. One of the main topics that was discussed was exploring the issues of a state test and the Federation's MBLEX exam, and absolutely no decisions have been made. And Mr. Ray Pizarro.
So, Ray Pizarro, Director for the Education Examination Division. Typically, we have work group meetings to explore, research, and clarify any rules or policies or procedures that the department may have for a particular industry. If we have some things that are not clarified via the current process, where we reach out to the work group, and the department will facilitate that work group with the members of the board, some of the members of the board without having a quorum. And things such as curriculum is not clear enough, are we teaching what we're supposed to be teaching in the schools, those type of things, to come to a consensus or some sort of informative information to provide to the rest of the board members, and then i.e., do we need to change rules, do we need to change policies, and those type of things, and that way we bring the general public into that conversation as well. Sometimes after a work group is conducted, sometimes we have what we call a summit, and we seek information from the general public. And sometimes that it'll spawn for us to go back to a work group and listen and take some of those issues that the general public has made and incorporate it into the discussions that we're having. So generally and typically, that's what the work group is all about. And as the chairman has mentioned, this work group, we talked about consistency in the curriculums that are being taught throughout the schools. Some of the work group members have brought to the table the type of references that are being used within the different schools, And our position is we need to have some sort of consistency so that the department can effectively regulate those schools on what is being taught by topic, which comes in hand with the examination. So typically the exam is supposed to be assessing those students from those schools. So the exam is a support on what the schools are teaching, not the other way around. So we don't want schools really teaching to the tests. So we want them to teach what they're supposed to be teaching on the topics, and as a department, either we utilize or develop an examination that will support the schools on what they're supposed to be teaching. So those are the kinds of things we're talking about. We're trying to, again, do some research, have some drafts, see what we come up with. Eventually, we'll get the general counsel involved to say, here's some recommendations on some rule changes to strengthen the curriculum so that we have some more oversight. As you guys know, there's some strategic initiatives by the department on licensing the students. And when I say licensing them, meaning to have a student permit. And so if those students have a student permit within the schools, now we have some accountability of each school and all of the students who are learning in the different schools and the 62 schools that we have licensed. That kind of thing, it all goes hand in hand so that we kind of have an understanding of how we're interpreting the rules, interpreting the laws, and actually implementing those laws and rules. Do you have anything?
No, I think you. I wanted to make sure that you mentioned about the reference material that we're gathering, so that was.
So that's the general gist for those members who are not part of our work group. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer.
Any questions? Okay, well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Now, I'd like to ask if there are any recommendations for future items to be covered on the future agendas for the advisory board.
No, but I have one comment. Is there a directive from the general counsel on how many meetings a year, since we will be going into our first full year next year, of how many meetings, or is it about necessity or need?
I'll start the discussion. Mary Winston, TDLR. As we enter into the session, it's going to be a different kind of year.
Yes.
Because a meeting would likely occur sooner if we were not in session. But because session will begin in January and things will change as per the will of the legislature, and we'll have people giving even more testimony before the different committees, you may have fewer meetings, or the meetings may start. We're going to propose a June meeting to you because of the session. Now, it's more necessity. There's not an exact number of meetings, but you would have more meetings if it weren't for session starting in January, and then we will take off more from there. So there's not a required minimum amount of meetings. We do have more work to do, but session and changes that could come up during that time, if you were to meet, things may change in the middle of the session. So we like to get a beat on that.
One other thing, being an advisory board meeting, where does that put our relationship to testimony in a hearing, or how does that work? Can I have two hats, or?
Advisory board members, I'm going to let Colleen.
I know, Colleen Tran, Assistant General Counsel, if you have, if you would like to testify on a bill in your own personal capacity as a professional in your field, you are more than welcome. It's the mingling of not letting it seem like it's TDLR, as you as a member of TDLR testifying on the topic, because.
But they won't assume that, because that is a public record that I am, or we do sit on the advisory board.
And it would be something that you would need to make clear that
Okay.
I'm representing myself as a personal, a professional
So when we
in
fill out
my,
our- okay.
yes, not TDLR.
I have a question, Mary. So if we were not to meet again till June, I just wondered, like, if you all are in the middle of legislative session, I know you're busy. At the same time, that may be a point at which the advisory group might want to weigh in on some of the issues that are coming up legislatively. So I just wonder about meeting only that, halfway through the year, if that would be a little late. I'm curious, this is our first time and we're learning a lot ourselves.
Typically not, Mary Winston, typically not. Things are going on during the session, bills are introduced, but things aren't necessarily passed a month in, 2 months. There's work that's going on. If there are different initiatives and there are different associations, they lobby or have that opportunity. Since we are regulatory, we do not lobby, we provide information if asked, and we may get some of that information from our board members, but it's only upon request that we provide any sort of testimony or information. So as a body, the requirement to meet is just not there.
Okay. Thank you.
Colleen Tran, Assistant General Counsel. I would just like to add, you guys are more than welcome if you have information or input to send that information to us. Again, I think Mr. Russ put it best last time. Don't send it to each other. Just talk to us about your issues, questions, or concerns. And we're always here. This also doesn't mean that your work groups aren't going to meet and they're not going to continue to work. Enforcement does for our next one of the agenda items that the enforcement would like to suggest is the enforcement plan for our next agenda item, and then we'll also have the rules back by then, so that will also be another agenda item.
Okay. One other question: will the advisory board be included in any final proposal that would? Because I know y'all do not stimulate legislators into legislation that needs to be pushed, but tell me how that works, though. I mean, if you're not saying, you got to tell legislators that we need this in order to do our job, how does that work from y'all's aspect going to the legislators?
Are you saying specifically during session? Or
Well, yes. I mean, because we only do it every 2 years, so y'all got to get in what you can get in.
Right. So for
okay, let's just use definition. Let's just look. Definition would have to be a legislative change. Well,
if a legislator proposed a definition,
okay,
and they asked us to be present at a committee hearing, Brian would show up. We would neither be for or against that bill. We are neutral on it. We're a resource, and we would just say we can or cannot implement that particular way the definition is written, or what it would implicate or what it would not implicate. That beyond that, and I'll take it outside of a legislative thing. If we have issues that come up even on the daily where it's beyond my ability, because I'm not a massage therapist, when it's beyond my ability of answering it, I go to my subject matter experts. And a particular example would be podiatry. We get lots of scope of practice questions that come in for podiatry. I am not a podiatrist, and so we use our scope of practice podiatry advisory board members to help answer, who are DPMs, and to help answer those questions. So
do we have a scope of practice massage advisory board? Is that what we are?
You
okay,
have
the work
yeah.
group.
So if
okay.
and so I know you're on education. So if an education question came up, or they would like to, somebody said, which by the way I hadn't heard of, somebody wanted to lower the number of hours. That would be something that, if we had a question on, or that we were called upon and we needed expertise, we could, if we wanted to or needed to, go to our education advisory board work group and ask for input.
Okay.
So, Mr. Russ, Mary Winston, so it would not necessitate the public posting because we're not getting into quorum issues, but different work groups that are part of the board, depending on the questions that are asked, because we're neutral. But depending on the questions that are asked and depending on which work group that you're a part of, would depend on if you are a resource for that question or not.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, and as always, someone just, thank you, Dee Dee, wanted me to remind you that you can keep up with the different bills and how legislation is moving on our website.
Yeah, thank you. All right. I think it's time to discuss then the date and time for our next meeting.
We are, okay, have we announced that Nick is retiring? Have we made that announcement?
No. Uh-oh.
Because he's handing this over. He wants no part. I'm just kidding.
Uh-huh.
But we gave him a gift earlier that is, not to be given on camera. But we're going to miss him. And he hates being embarrassed, so I hope this isn't awful. But he is going to be retiring soon. And I just wanted to let y'all know before he goes, and that we've enjoyed working with him, and thank him for joining us. And I think he's actually, are you retiring, Nick?
Oh, yeah.
So he's...
Famous last words.
Famous last words. So sorry, that was all off script, but he handed this over, and I'm like, oh yeah, you won't likely be here next time. He'll be watching on YouTube, yeah. We are looking at June 10th or 11th. The 1 p.m. time good?
June 11th for me.
June 11th?
Due to graduation situations for me, I will not be available the rest of that month.
Okay, so June 11th is it.
Just a second.
Oh, you're talking about at work. Is that a Tuesday?
I can do the 11th, not the 10th.
Okay.
Did we say that? You said that as well?
1
How about the
p.m.?
11th?
1 p.m.?
Does that work
Yes.
for everyone?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. It's a miracle. All right,
Make
that's
a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Caroline Guerin, I'll second that.
second the motion. All in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I don't think so. So, thank you all very much. I adjourn the meeting now officially. Feel free to hang around and chat with each other or with us. Thank you so much. And thank you, TDLR.